I feel a call to work in this area to bring justice to Palestine, but also to bring a better way for the people of Israel. This is just not healthy for them, the way life is going there right now.
There's a lovely passage in John where Jesus said, I've come that they might have full life. And so the hope is for everybody to have fullness of life.
All through the scriptures, God is a God of justice, and where there is no justice, there is no peace.
Dear sisters and brothers, I am addressing you today from Bethlehem, Palestine. I am addressing you with greetings from all Christians in this country. I am addressing you with hope that you will listen to our call, which was embedded in the Kairos document, a call for faith, hope, and love.
I'm pretty excited that the United Church of Canada is considering the recommendations in the report from the Working Group on Israel and Palestine. I think they are absolutely right. They are integral, moral, conscientious positions that deserve your support.
The whole society has been thoroughly altered and suppressed.
It was absolutely an unbelievable thing to witness.
I hadn't realized it was a military occupation, and a fairly brutal one. So you go into this little village and there's ancient olive trees, but you look up into the hills and you can see big radio towers and barbed wire, and it's where unlawfully Israelis come and lay claim to the area. And what they were doing was shooting the farmers, and eventually they scared off the whole village.
We were in Silwan, and the people there talked to us about having deeds to these houses going back 100 years, and that the government was threatening to come in and destroy their homes. They showed us a place in Sheikh Jarrah where the family, Palestinian family, had been living in this house, and some Israeli settlers came in and took over half the house. So now they were living together in the same compound, and the Palestinians were constantly being harassed by the Israeli settlers.
The things that we saw in Hebron, where 400 settlers backed by the army are displacing 100,000 Palestinians and making life for them impossible, all with the full backing of the Israeli state.
Personally, for me, there's never been a place I've been in the world where I felt such overt and unapologetic racism as when I was in Israel-Palestine. And that's specifically from the security services and traveling with a group of North Americans where everyone else was white. And from the moment I stepped off the plane to the moment I left, I was always singled out from the group. I was always pulled aside. When I went on my own to fly out, we were on a bus full of maybe 30 tourists. Soldiers came on. Only person they spoke to was me. Only person's idea they saw was me. And then it was kind of, okay, now it's safe. Have a nice trip, guys. To stepping off that bus and getting pulled aside before I even went in, to having people say, well, what's the ethnic origin of your name? And where does this come from? And that sort of stuff. And never having felt that anywhere else, but that it was unapologetic there and a constant part of any point where we were interacting with authorities, that just blatant racism.
We saw settlers, some of them Orthodox religious, throwing excrement and urine along with rocks and bricks down on the heads of Palestinians in the street below.
We heard stories about how people in Bethlehem had their water turned on for 2 days every month, and that they would fill rain buckets in order to be able to have some water to live throughout the 15 days where they're not having any water. We heard also about how Israeli Defense Forces would kind of do rounds in Bethlehem and shoot out water buckets.
And they asked me why I was there. And I said, well, I wanted to be with farmers. I'm a farmer. And then they wanted to know who I talked to. And I said, I talked to somebody named Muhammad, but I don't speak Arabic. And from there, that basically gave me the right to a little strip search. It took 2 hours at the airport.
What most shocked me during the 3 months I lived there in 2007 is to see that a normal life is not possible for Palestinians. For many children, for example, East Jerusalem, they have to cross the wall to go to school, and to cross this wall, they need a permit, they need to cross a checkpoint, they need to see soldiers.
The abiding image I have is that was the first time that the absolute imposing presence of the wall since 2005 was made real and visible to me. Wherever we went, it felt like you were in prison.
I have lived through the occupation of 1967. I had to bring up children in a condition of occupation, and yet at the same time try to preserve the moral values that we believe in. And I knew that the conditions that we live under, the measures that are taken that are so oppressive, cannot be conducive to peace.
My social justice work is very much tied to my faith and how, as Christians, we are taught to seek justice and love mercy, and we do that. We love God by showing love to others and by being their neighbor.
I look to Isaiah, I look to Jeremiah with great humility. You may look to your teacher, Jesus. And we see in the Bible that God's telling us, seek peace and pursue it. Justice, justice you shall pursue.
Jesus was crucified because of his public proclamation about justice for the downtrodden. The ruling Roman Empire did not like that message, and they crushed it.
This is something we have to grapple with, even if it's difficult and even if it's politically sensitive and touched, because what issue that matters wasn't in their time. Civil rights was controversial when it came up. Anti-apartheid was controversial when it comes up.
There's a kind of knee-jerk reaction among many Christians that no matter what Israel does, they are the ones that we formerly acted despicably towards, and therefore whatever they do now is hands off. Well, our guilt leads us to a false notion of truth because we're not able to see with open eyes. And the guilt kind of leads us to a rationalization of support. From a theological perspective, our solidarity is with Jews, yes, but not with the state of Israel.
Groups like CJA and others who are playing a parallel role are trying to exploit Christian guilt, which is well-founded, the Christian guilt for the mistreatment of Jews historically. But what they're doing, I think, is exploiting that guilt for cynical purposes.
Being courageous as a church and not intimidated by threats of cutting off ties with the Jewish community or being called anti-Semitic demands quite a lot from a church that has committed itself to follow in the footsteps of the Savior. When you are addressing the wrongs that the state is doing, you are helping governments that have diverted, and in this case from the morality of Judaism, to come back.
I look to people, Jews of conscience, who are also very upset at what's going on there and are making courageous witness. They're not being anti-Semitic, but they are simply acting out of their sense of morality and what's right or wrong and how people are being treated.
CJA rationalizes everything that Israel does. It's an instance of Israel right or wrong. I don't believe in that form of nationalism, nor do other members of IJV.
The other reason why we focus on Israel is that we are hoping Israel will regain its humanity and be part of the international community as an equal, not as somebody apart or somebody above the international laws.
3 years ago, our organization, IJV, endorsed boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel.
Parmi toutes les pistes d'action qui existent, le BDS en est un. Et c'est un moyen qui est non violent et qui peut changer les choses à terme, ou à tout le moins qui peut enclencher un effet domino qui peut augmenter la confiance au niveau international qu'il y a quelque chose qui se passe en Israël-Palestine qui ne fonctionne pas et que la situation doit changer.
I would like to encourage the United Church of Canada, because I was at Kelowna and I saw what can happen to a church who is a staunch supporter of justice and that can be intimidated at the last moment not to take a resolution, and not to fear, not to be intimidated, and keep doing the work of justice that they do all over the world and apply it to Palestine and Israel too.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us, Jews, Christians, Muslims, religious, non-religious, to take to heart the plight of the Palestinians and their cry for help as embodied in the Kairos Palestine document.
That's important to the whole world, that Muslims and Christians and Jewish people work together and cooperate. You could have this city where the three faiths coexist peacefully as a witness to the whole world. You could.